When you're thinking about ways to design graphics and text for headlines, there are many different ways that you can go and create wonderfully effective work, but there are a few things that you'll want to keep in mind as you're starting out and as you're developing your style and your look. And I'm going to share these with you here in a short listing PDF, and then I'm going to demonstrate some simple headline treatments in InDesign and show you some tips for success there. So things to keep in mind for headline use are hierarchy, contrast, and whitespace. Now, hierarchy, as I've talked about in another video, is basically the order in which things are read and experienced. And naturally, you want your headline to be the first thing people see, or if not the very first, at least one of the very first things that they see, so they know what they're looking at and that they're drawn in to read the body copy of what follows. So generally speaking, we use scale to indicate a hierarchy, and larger than the body copy is a good rule of thumb. Generally 1.5 times the size of the body text. However, you can go a lot larger. There's all different ways of sizing and scaling and positioning your typefaces for an effective headline. It is really important, however, that it be easy to read and a quick read so that the reader is not bogged down before they read anything else on the page. Another thing, and these are good design principles all around, of course, but especially here for headlines, and that is contrast. You want them to read it. You want them to be able to easily see what you're doing. So high contrast on your page or your screen is really imperative for, certainly for body copy, but very well for headlines as well. So if you have a dark background, your title should be in a lighter color to pop. A lot of designers starting out and students like to use imagery as backgrounds, and that can certainly be effective. However, you want to be careful that you don't use a background that's too busy, because any type set over a busy image is going to get lost. So you can either just be really simple with your background, or be very, very careful if you use an image for a background that you set your text over an area that has low contrast, not much tonal changes behind it. A lot of times photographers, when they're shooting a magazine cover and it's an outdoor shot, they'll go for a shot that has a lot of sky in it because they know that the type is going to be on top of their image. So they actually shoot the photograph to encompass a lot of sky and tonal similarity so that they know where the type will go and that it be readable. So just think about good contrast for your backgrounds and your type. And then lastly, for this section, I'm going to talk about Whitespace. Whitespace is a graphic design basic tool, and we also call it negative space or breathing room. Of course, it isn't always white, but it's just an area of emptiness, and that is a great way to call attention to any element, be it an image or a piece of text. If you have breathing room around something, the eye is naturally going to go to it, which means that you could get away with smaller text on your headline if you have a lot of space around it. Breathing room is very important in all graphic design, of course. Now, when you're writing a headline, if you happen to be writing something for a piece of your own, make sure that your headline is not too long, that it grabs the reader's attention and leads them into the copy. You don't need to tell your whole story with your headline. Just a few simple, catchy words will suffice. And then, of course, consider scaling, breathing room, white space, and contrast to draw your attention towards that headline. This information was edited from webdesign.tutsplus.com, and the Tuts Plus websites are really nice tutorial websites to go to for all kinds of helpful information. So I hope that this will give you some idea of headline tips to follow. I'm switching over to InDesign now, and I'm showing you 3 very simple headlines I put together that utilize scaling, color, and graphic shapes such as rectangles for a nice unity. I'm also going to demonstrate how to do the type on a path for that curved headline if you don't know how to do that. The Father's Day Gifts headline uses two different typefaces. I've got Futura in here, and I have a Garamond, a serif typeface, completely different than the other, but these two work quite well together. And you can see that Father's Day is upper and lower case with a very large F, which determines the height of the whole graphic, and that gifts is set in all caps beneath it, utilizing the negative space beneath the or next to the F and under the text, and also kind of capped at the end there with that Y descender. And I put a light blue rectangle behind gifts to help it anchor to the composition. It lines up with the bottom of the F, and I let the descender of the Y come over that blue box again to give it unity and connect it to the word beneath. So it's very simple, but I think it holds together nicely, easy to read, and has some good summary colors. I'll come back to this curved headline in a moment, but I used similar things in the summer savings headline down here. This is the same font throughout. It's Helvetica in different weights, and I used all caps because all caps can give a nice clean line to the edges of your words. There's no upper and lower case changes in the shape of the words. And the focal points here are the bright summer colors, the fact that summer is running up the side, and the word R set in a thickened crossbar on the H, which I did manually. And the readability is quite good. The I goes up the page, it goes over, and it goes down, and you read it in the order it's meant to be read. So these are some good tips for utilizing scale, color, and placement, and as well as case, to create some nice cohesive headlines. To finish this video, I'm going to give a quick demonstration on how to create the Welcome to Atwood Park headline. You'll want to use the Type on a Path tool, but first you want to create the pen tool shape. So you click on your pen tool, you make sure that you don't have any fill in the box, but that you have a nice dark stroke, and you do a click for the end. You move up a little bit and you create a curve point by dragging your mouse out. Notice that I'm making long headlines, rather long arrows, anchor points, handles, and that they are perfectly horizontal. And then I give my final point right about there. You might want to pull a ruler guide down to make sure they are on the same level to give a nice, you have to switch to your direct selection tool to move your point to make it symmetrical. So I have a fairly symmetrical curve here, which is great. Now I switch to my Type on a Path tool. You want to make sure you're on the right tool. You click on the edge of your path and your cursor should be there ready for you to go. You type in your text. I'm doing it in all caps, and I'm going to make some of the letters taller here. Now the first thing you'll want to do is select your text, still in your Type on a Path tool, go to your paragraph panel and choose Align Center so that it sits correctly. And then you can switch to your character panel and alter your sizing accordingly. I'm doing the whole phrase right now, but then I'm going to go back and change my initial caps to something a little bit larger. And of course you want to make sure that you are consistent with your type spacing. This takes a little longer, but the effect is really elegant and can be quite lovely. It does take some time though. Lastly, I'm going to work with my tracking. The letters seem a little bit too far apart for me, so I'm going to go to my tracking and type in, that looks pretty good. I might go in and adjust the kerning on that pair there. And if you want to, you can put in a little extra space. I'm using a space bar here to separate the words out so that they are a little more readable. Now lastly, this is different than Illustrator. When you use Type on a Path in Illustrator, your base pen tool curve disappears. In InDesign it does not do that, so you're going to have to go in later with your selection tool when it's all done, click on that path and change the stroke color to none so that it goes away. Okay, that's an InDesign thing that Illustrator does not have. So I hope that this fairly long video has been helpful for you with some headline tips and tricks, and that you enjoy creating your headlines. Thanks.